Another Far Cry game? Yes, another Far Cry. This time Far Cry 6. So the game was released in 2021 and is the next game in the franchise's main series, with Far Cry 5 having come out in 2018. Publisher for this one is Ubisoft, who I'm guessing all gamers are at least aware of, and the developer is Ubisoft Toronto. So what is Far Cry 6, and is it worth picking it up today? Well, hopefully I can help you answer that exact question. So without any further ado, let's get into it. Far Cry 6 takes place in 2021 on the fictional Caribbean island of Yara. It's loosely inspired by Cuba and is going to be set in the standard Far Cry format. It's ruled by a tyrant dictator, Anton Castillo. The world that this one is taking place in has a theme of repeating of history on the island. In 1967, a guerrilla revolution was able to overthrow Anton's father, leading to a blockade which devastates the island nation and sends it spiraling into poverty. However, in 2019, Anton is elected president and starts the production of Viviro. Viviro comes from a type of tobacco which is unique to Yara. And without getting into the how and the why, it's basically able to cure cancer, which of course leads to a huge economic influx for Yara. So in order to ensure a large supply of this product for trade, Yarans are conscripted into a service for cultivation of the plant. The player is going to take on the role of Danny Rojas, either going to be a male or female version depending on which you choose in the beginning of the game, with Danny having received a notice of conscription just prior to the game starting. And so naturally this doesn't sit well with Danny, and so him and his friends Lita Torres and Alejo Ruiz plan to escape to Miami. Now, as you can probably guess if you've played any Far Cry game in the past, this doesn't work as planned, and instead Danny joins the new guerrilla organization, Libertad, all with the goal of overthrowing Anton from power. As with the other Far Cry games, this one is taking place in first person in an open world for you to explore. You do get a third-person view when in allied bases, which is good because there's a ton of apparel and equipment to customize your guerrilla with. So as usual in a Far Cry game, you're also going to find a bunch of roads and dirt paths connecting the map, with jungle in between towns, military bases, checkpoints, and other small settlements and villages. As I mentioned, there are some main operating bases. The game is separated into zones, which will have a main antagonist, think like Far Cry 5. But you're also going to have an allied group operating in each of those areas. This is not one completely unified group that you're on the side of. It's more a confederation of different rebel groups with different aims. But for the purposes of the game, you're essentially just going to be a part of each of these factions, taking on quests from them when you're in the area. There's going to be a good variety of different standard weapons to choose from. Think all of your obvious rifles, SMGs, pistols, and bows. But we also have something else that's added for this game, which is called Resolver Weapons, which are improvised unique weapons with special effects. Weapons can also be customized, and there's also a soft target and armor-piercing choice for ammo type. So this actually is a little bit annoying in my opinion, because you're probably going to want to have two different weapons with different ammo types, because even though armor-piercing in reality should still be highly effective against soft targets, in the game, it's not. And why is that? Because it's a video game and they need some kind of mechanic in order to have this separation. Stealth is also going to come back, and you're pushed towards taking down enemy bases without alerting guards. Inside the bases, there's often going to be cameras and alarms that you can take out to make this easier, but the game wants you to try to remain unseen. Of course, if you do get spotted, you can always just brute force your way to victory. Another unique weapon is the Supremos, which are backpacks with ultimate abilities. So things like a rocket barrage, or there's an EMP blast, which is great for disabling vehicles. The companion system also returns with different animal amigos, which can be called on to follow you and take simple orders. Take note though, there is no human companions in this one. And it also wouldn't be a Far Cry game without a ton of different vehicles. There's civilian cars, trucks, and motorcycles, helicopters, military vehicles, planes, boats, even horses in this one. These can all be taken back to certain bases and added to your garage so you can use them later. Grapple hooks also make a return, as well as the wingsuits and parachutes. There's also a fast travel mechanic that allows you to quickly move to liberated bases around the map. As far as the main bases, they do have a light base building component. Basically, each zone, as I mentioned, is run by one of the allied factions. And within their main base, you can build specific upgrades. There's only a few to choose from, and they get placed in their predefined locations, so it's not like a free-form base building mechanic. It's really just a base upgrade that gives you some kind of bonus. Now, the Far Cry games always have a ton of mechanics, so I'm going to be missing some, but I think you get the general idea here. As far as the general gameplay loop, it's an open world, it's split into zones, and each zone has a main antagonist as well as an opposing allied faction. Allied to your main faction, that is. So you're going to take on missions from these allied factions, which are done to cripple the regime, all while taking out enemy bases, checkpoints, and other locations held by the enemy, which will then become friendly areas populated by rebels and will sometimes be locations that give you some other kind of benefit, such as vehicle retrieval for instance. The overall objective is just to continue on in the main campaign in order to topple the authoritarian regime. Comparisons are every other Far Cry game basically. You have a world with some big baddie. They control the fictional region based on a real-world location. You end up joining the rebel faction determined to overthrow them and basically just keep chipping away at them until you do just that. If you've played a Far Cry game, especially 4 or 5, then you know what to expect here. They certainly did not reinvent the wheel with this one. It's kind of typical Ubisoft at this point. They have some main franchises that they just keep putting out games for, but really it all just feels very systematic. All their games lately are essentially just a reskin of the previous game, but set in a different location. So does that mean it's bad? Well, nobody can answer that but you. If you really like the formula that they have for Far Cry games at this point, then this is essentially the exact same thing, but in a Caribbean setting. If you want something outside of the franchise, you've also got Just Cause 3. It's an open world, you're fighting on the side of rebels to liberate from a dictator, you got wingsuits, parachutes, and a ton of vehicles. It's certainly got a lot in common. Of course, Just Cause 3 is in third person and has an emphasis on the grapple hook in a unique way, but just the overall vibe is going to be kind of similar here. Probably the most unique thing in this that's going to set it a little bit apart is the Supremos, the backpacks that give you an ultimate ability. It's something new to the series and sets it apart a little bit. Along with this is the Resolver weapons. These weapons are improvised and over the top. So you don't actually have an RPG system like previously, instead it's all about the gear that you unlock and equip. So again, this might feel a little bit different from some of the previous Far Crys. Personally, I didn't really run into any bugs or performance issues, but that's not to say that you won't. Mostly what I see online is when there's a lot of things going on, such as explosions or fire effects, you can get a dip in FPS. But I wouldn't say that this is a unique problem to Far Cry 6. This seems pretty standard with pretty much every game out there. Graphics in this one are solid. You probably expected as much as it's a big budget Ubisoft game, and honestly the previous ones were all solidly done as well. The environments do all end up looking pretty much the same. It's taking place on a Caribbean island, so I guess that makes sense. As usual with all of my reviews, just use the gameplay footage to decide for yourself if you like this style of graphics. The dialogue is fine. I didn't think that the writing was exceptionally good or bad. So there's always going to be some edgelord dialogue in Ubisoft games, and it's here as well. But it's not egregious. The voice acting is done pretty well, so I don't really have any complaints there. Sound is good, as usual for Far Cry games. Everything I just said is basically my own opinion, and not really going to be an objective look at it, so I'll just play some examples so that you can get an idea for yourself as to what to expect in the sound and dialogue.
Of course. And you think Americans want your Yaran blood? The American dream is for Americans, Danny.
How do you think, you Yankee asshole?
Well, Canadian asshole, actually. We're like Americans, except we say sorry as we slide the knife in.
That workbench, you can build a new Yara. How can you kill people faster?
Llegan respuestas definitivas, progresivas. Sigamos con la fuerza positiva. Es que tenemos las ganas del tamaño de un estadio. Por eso seguimos tomando la lucha diaria. No creo porque no. Se te siente el lado humano, gusano. Hitler seguramente es tu hermano. Justifica sus orígenes. Los mundanos son guerrilla.
Okay, so with the objective part done, now we're getting into just strictly my own opinions. Of course, some opinions were thrown in throughout the review, but I try to avoid it as much as possible. The first part of the review is much more about just showing you what the game is so that you can decide for yourself if you're interested in it. Now I'm going to go into just my personal experience, how I felt about it, what I thought, and of course answering the question of if I enjoyed the game or not, and if I would personally recommend it to a friend of mine. So this is just for fun. Whether I liked it or not doesn't mean that you will or won't. I'm not trying to convince you. You have a brain and you can decide for yourself based on what you saw here if it's of interest to you or not. And so did I enjoy Far Cry 6?
It was fine, I guess.
It's fine. Yeah, I know, an earth-shattering hot take. But what can I say? It's a Far Cry game. I think I've got Far Cry fatigue at this point, so I'm not sure what they could do other than releasing something totally different that would get me more interested in it. If you're totally new to the series and not as jaded as me, I would say that Far Cry 3 or maybe Far Cry 5 might be a more enjoyable experience, but that's just my own opinion and the games in the franchise that I personally like the most. I also really like the small spin-off games that were made as DLC for Far Cry 5, like the Zombie or Vietnam DLCs. One of the things that I really liked about those was that they took the Far Cry style, but they changed it into something different, something interesting and unique for the story and the world that they were trying to build for those. If you've never heard of the Vietnam DLC, check out the review that I did because it basically feels like Far Cry, but a Rambo game. Anyway, Far Cry 6 feels very formulaic, just as the series has been progressing towards. The setting is interesting enough, but it really wasn't enough for me. Like I said, I think I've got Far Cry fatigue, so a Far Cry game with a new skin, it just feels too samey as previous releases to hold my interest. I also didn't really like the soft target versus the armor piercing. It all just seemed kind of arbitrary to me as to who has what resistances. In a practical sense, it ends up meaning that you might have a sniper rifle for clearing guards on the edge of the base before moving in. Unfortunately, these guards are probably going to have a mix of needing to be taken down with the soft target or armor piercing ammo respectively. The thing is, you can do multiple loadouts in this game, so you could just have the same weapons, but just put them in different loadouts with the different ammo in it. This all just feels unnecessary and it really slows things down though. Being able to swap weapon loadouts on the fly, it also makes you wonder why they even bothered with this mechanic in the first place. Since you can always have the right tools, it's not like having to choose between one or the other. It really just becomes the hassle of swapping loadouts in the middle of a combat situation. The characters are fine, but none of them really feel iconic. Not like some characters or antagonists in previous releases. So I had high hopes with Giancarlo playing the main antagonist, but I didn't really find him all that interesting, to be honest. I don't think the actor did anything wrong, and the voice acting is done well. It's just, I think the character itself wasn't really fleshed out to the point to make him that interesting. He's more like a generic dictator. So I know that everything that I'm saying is probably kind of harsh, but overall the game is fine. There's really nothing wrong with the game. And if you haven't played all the other Far Cry games, then this could end up being a really fun and interesting experience for you. If you're like me, however, and you have played all the other Far Cry games, just know that there's not really anything new here. You're going to be in store for a very solidly average experience. It's all going to be set in a huge map with a ton of busy work that you can engage in, such as taking checkpoints or bases, and there's also tons of the standard side missions that you expect to find. But regardless, I hope you enjoyed this look at Far Cry 6. Have you already played the game? Please let me know down in the comments if you agreed or disagreed with my own opinions on it. If the video was helpful or entertaining, please give it a like and also consider subscribing to the channel. I post a bunch of gaming content, not just reviews like this, but also walkthroughs, gaming news, and a bunch of other gaming content. And I'd love to have you join the community and help direct the future of the channel. Thank you so much for taking the time to watch today, and until next time, take care.